the main event. The theme of this event is treasure, and we're approaching you. So it's your turn, because he's the lead speaker.
Thank you. Welcome. Good morning.
Thank you.
Just gonna see if I can pull up my notes.
Yeah. Do you want? Is it okay if you
Yeah. Sure, fine. I'll probably move around a bit, so I may trip on the wire, but that's okay. It'll be a funny moment for everyone. Yes. So welcome. Good morning. My name is Nils Soderstrom. I am 41 years of age. Live in Värmdö in Sweden. With my dog, my wife, my kid, and I very much enjoy the outdoors. So when doing these events and people kind of try to introduce you, you ask, well, what do you do, what do you like? I like my dog, I like my kid, I like the outdoors. So it's fairly simple. I've been working in the creative industry for a bit, but I've also done a long stint as a entrepreneur. I've started several companies. I bankrupted 2 of them splendidly, but I've also done 3 exits. I think if a good entrepreneur should have a sort of a one-to-one relationship between bankruptcies and exits. I think that's a fair way to look at it. My last company did an exit last fall, and now I work for Scania as a venture builder, venture developer. That's not what we're going to be talking about today, but that's where I am. Scania, as a lot of these companies are now looking to expand their intake on new ideas and new visions and broaden their horizon outside of their R&D department. This is happening across all of the industries today, in my mind. So it's really interesting, and it's a good opportunity. It's fun to help them with that. But that's not what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about treasure. And this is a very interesting subject because when I thought of treasure, there's a huge amount of different meanings to the word, right? What is treasure? What is treasure to me, to you, to someone? It could be, obviously amassing a ton of wealth. It could be pirating loot, that's a treasure, but it could also be something that you treasure. But the first thing that came to mind when I thought about treasure was this. You know this guy. Scrooge McDuck, right? We know what he treasures. He treasures wealth. That is what he likes. He wants to be the richest duck in Duckburg, right? And this is what he does. He amasses wealth. He has a big money bin with wealth, with money in it. But that's not the full story, right? Because if you actually go into it, if you remember DuckTales, which the kid of the 80s, I was brought up with this. If you remember DuckTales, and if you remember reading the comics, wealth is not what he treasures. He equally as much treasures his family, and especially his nephews, right? Time and time again through these stories, he will give up his first dearest coin, and he will give up all of his wealth and all that stuff to save his family and save his nephews and remember what he's done. So there's a dichotomy here, right? The what's his name? Gloomgold Flintberg, whatever. I don't remember. I think that's his English name. And Magic of the Spell. They're just there to propel the story. What the actual antagonist here is choice. Choice between the wealth and choice between his family. And that choice between those 2 things that he actually treasures. And that's not really, that is a choice that is made in comic books, but this is something that we also face every single day in our life. that choice between those things that we treasure. And what do we treasure the most as a society? Well, that's actually quite simple. September 25th, 2015, the world came collectively together and said, hey guys, what do we actually treasure? And we wrote that down in 17 different goals that we said, these are the goals that we treasure. And these are then our sustainable development goals. They cover everything from I mean, sustainability, yes, you know, you think environmental, well, but that's not everything. They cover everything from environmental sustainability, fishing, poverty, hunger, equal rights, culture, all of that stuff is in there. And we said this is our most important goals. This is what we want to do. However, when we set out to do this, we see that we keep missing them. So we set 2030 for this, and all of a sudden it looks like 2035, right? Zero city emissions, those goals are already passed. These news just keep piling up, right? So if this is what we treasure, if this is what we collectively have said, that this is what we want to do, how come we can't really get there? How come it seems so difficult for us to actually lower the amount of emissions, to get down to that 1.5 degree limits? How come we can't really get there? It's not because we're not actively trying. That's not the problem. We know that. We do know that if we were to meet all the sustainable development goals, we would create some 230 billion US annually in new jobs. So this is important for both businesses and for us as citizens. However, we can't really seem to find that pathway to lead us there. So you have to ask yourself, is there something in the design of this that doesn't really fit the way we're working with it? 92% of all companies globally say they support this. I have an interesting question about the remaining 8%. I don't know why you would say that. I don't think they say actively we do not support this, because that's PR murder. But I have no idea why that. I mean, it should be an obvious 100%. I have no idea. But it's interesting. Anywho, they are actively working with this, but only 17% say that they have the roadmap, the tools, the way they can, way they need to achieve this. So how do we then work with this to actually achieve what we treasure? Do you know who this is? Yeah. Greta.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's Greta Thunberg. And she's carted off by police. This happens quite often in her life nowadays. Do you know why she's carted off by police in this instance? Because this is the interesting stuff. So she's holding a flag. This flag is from the Sami community. The Sami community, as you all know, is a community that lives in northern Sweden, Norway, Finland, parts of Russia. What she is protesting in this case, and she's carted off by Norwegian police, is the construction of wind farms in northern Norway. Because these wind farms would provide clean energy to several thousand homes in Norway. However, they would also drastically impede the life of the Sami people. These wind farms would be erected on what Sami people culturally perceive as their land, where they have their caribou and all that stuff, and that would drastically just change. So what we have here, if we look at the sustainability goals, we have an interesting dichotomy, right? At one time, we want clean and affordable energy, but at the same time, we want to preserve our cultures and reduce inequality. And here is where they clash. We can't really do one without hurting the other. Should we help the Sami people and then tell the Norwegians that they can't have more clean, they have a lot of clean energy, but they can't have more clean energy? Which side should we choose? We have more. Fishermen. We have a sustainable development goal that says zero hunger. We also have a life below water goal where we need to nourish and treat the seas. This has gone so far, the dichotomy in between these goals have gone so far that if you look at the Horn of Africa, on the east coast of Africa, fishing, in a sense there, has dried out the seas to provide food for that people. So much so that they're now, they've done this for a few years, taken to piracy. So we have actual naval vessels, actual destroyers in the seas outside of Djibouti, shooting down small fishing boats because these fishing boats try to take over these big massive vessels. And the reason why they're doing this is mainly because the seas are empty. There's no more fish. They can't provide for their families to do this. So, because we want to leave the fish alone. We want to preserve the seas. We have more. The Amazon rainforest. There's about 30 million people living in the Amazon rainforest, indigenous people and others. And the forest industry in the Amazon employs about 1 million of them. Now we want to preserve, you thought I was going to say we want to preserve the Amazons, right? Yes, we do want to preserve the Amazons. However, at that point, we need to tell those 1 million people that, hey guys, you can't have a job no more. Which one do we choose? I want to breathe fresh air. I'm sure these people want to breathe fresh air as well. But the question is, how, where do we weigh that? Fresh air today or food today? You know about cell phones, electrification, all that stuff. Good, right? Every single thing in here, every single device, all the cameras, everything has a battery in it. Batteries are made up of different metals, right? Rare earth metals that are mined in extremely unwelcoming conditions. I'm sure you've all heard about the cobalt mining and stuff in Africa, which is horrific. Again, they do this. They need the money. They need the income. Otherwise, they would plummet into poverty. And if we can't do that, we need affordable energy, affordable and clean energy on this side. And if you thought this was only cell phones, it goes further. We need these metals to upkeep our grids. So it's not providing energy for this alone, but it's providing energy for all of this. If we don't have this, we cannot store the intermittent energy that comes from the sun or the wind. So we cannot upkeep the load balance in our grid to provide a secure and reliable energy source, which is one of the clean goals here. So then we furthermore need to ask ourselves, what should we then bank on? Should we bank on nuclear? Nuclear has had a renowned positive influx in the world over the last couple of years, naturally due to energy prices, naturally due to scarcity of resources. But if we want this, then we have another interesting dichotomy in this, which is the affordable and clean energy now, but with the possibility of not having clean energy in the future, because we got to still store this for. With the new generation 4 reactors, people say 5,000 years. Currently, we have to store it at 150,000 years. Do you know what happened last time we tried to store something for 5,000 years? The pyramids was built about 5,000 years ago. We forgot how to read, how to open those. We needed a special stone to understand who the hell was there, and they built those for the sole purpose for the world to remember who was there, right? And added caveat bonus, we forgot a sphinx. It's a big, massive stone lion right there in the sand, and we just forgot about it. So we don't have a very good track record of building stuff that's going to stand the test of time. So we need to understand, do we want to take this chance and risk now, or do we want to take the chance and risk it later? This is what do we treasure the most here? Do you know what this is? This is a picture taken in about 1980 of the city of Shenzhen in China. This is what the city looks like today.
Wow.
It's a massive city, right? This is one of the so-called mega cities. A mega city is a city that has more than 10 million people, 10 million inhabitants. And the numbers differ a bit, but we have about 35 megacities in the world. And cities are good. Cities provide shelter. They provide access to services. They provide access to healthcare, to education, all that stuff. People moving into cities usually have a higher standard of living and a good health and well-being. However, these cities are also massively polluting. Moving some 10 million people, 30 million people, 45 million people into a massive city is going to create waste and it's going to create pollution. So we don't really know which one to choose. And in this, we have a ton of air pollution, right? So that becomes questionable, which in turn also, I guess, makes that one questionable. So there's a challenge here in between the different goals we want to choose. Look at that guy. He's fun, right? This is taken on. I have my family on the west coast of Sweden. It doesn't sound like that when I talk because it's raised in Stockholm, but this is taken on the west coast of Sweden. They have a sign here which says no, ingen vindkraft på våra fiskeplatser, no wind farms on our fishing grounds, right? And what this has to do is, again, do we need access to the sustainable, clean energy that we need, or do we want to preserve these communities? Because if they erect these wind farms out in the sea in Kattegatt and Skagerrak, outside of Gothenburg, they will in reality create a fence that just fences these fishing villages in. So they're not going to be able to fish no more. All of that fishing industry, all of that fishing culture, all of that history is just going to die because we want clean, affordable energy. So what do we want to do here? So the question really comes back to, as I've been alluding, right, all this talk today is what do we actually treasure? What do we want to achieve? Because we cannot do everything, so we need to pick something and focus on that. And what's really important to remember here in that choice and in that dichotomy is that if we make a choice, on one hand, we are gonna leave other stuff on the table. So we cannot save the fishing villages and have wind farms. We cannot continue to mine for cobalt and these rare earth minerals, and still say that we're developing the entire world out of poverty and that stuff. Yeah. So that's really the question: what do we treasure, and how do we make that choice? Now, I could end the presentation here and just send you off with just that collective feeling of like, oh shit, I don't want to start my Friday this way. But I really don't like not having a call to action. So I figured I would send you guys off with a few tips on what you can do today that's not going to hurt anyone, that's going to, change stuff for the better. So we know that we can question the Sustainable Development Goals. We know that this is a dichotomy in there that doesn't really mix and match all the time. But the question then is, what can we as individuals and what can we as people or even companies do about it? Well, the obvious first thing is stuff like this. We can talk about it and spread the knowledge and spread the message, and get more people engaged in this type of thinking. But there's also a few hands-on stuff that we can do. Unsubscribing to emails saves about 1.6 kilogram of CO2 equivalents per person annually.
How?
Yes, I'll explain that to you. So sending an email, no attachment, no nothing, right? Takes computing power, right? And on an average, it takes as much computing power as 0.3 grams of emissions for sending that email. That is based on what's called the residual mix, which is the grams of carbon per kilowatt hour consumed of Europe. So if you attach emails, like I did, I sent you this presentation. It was about 6 megabytes. So I'm guilty of more than this. But the average email is about 0.3 grams. Now, every single person on average gets about 10 to 15 newsletters every day that they don't read. If you unsubscribe and tell these companies, because this is a newsletter, I get stuff from Klaus Olsson or whatever company that I somehow signed up a membership for. If you tell them to, please do not send me this no more, this is what you're going to save annually. Walking 20 minutes per day saves about 63 billion. Walking 20 minutes a day is the minimum amount of exercise you need to increase your cardiovascular system or your cardiovascular health with about 30%. Cardiovascular health is one of the biggest economical the costs of the entire health system of the Western world today. If we all did this, and now I'm sorry, I'm just gonna pull up my actual notes so I can give you the actual numbers if you want to know. So, 1.8 million people are diagnosed with cardiovascular diseases every single year, at a cost of about 21 billion. Or 210 billion euros. If we bring that, if everyone were to walk 20 minutes a day and bring that number down 30%, we would save this amount of money in Europe. That's kind of interesting. And the last one, talk to strangers. This is also really interesting. Talking to people increases your mental health and mental awareness. We all know that. And it's actually on the point, I'm going to read my numbers here. Oh yeah, so it's actually to the point where people who talk to, they did a study of this in the University of Sussex. People who have a active social lifestyle, active communication lifestyle, have 50% less mental health issues. This is at cost levels to equate with smoking. And those people live on an average 3.7 years longer than people who do not have a active or healthy social network to fall back on. And added bonus, people who engage with strangers on occasion will triple those numbers. So it's just very interesting how these small things, if we all do this, can have a massive effect. Thank you for listening. That was everything I had to say today.
Thank you.
Thank you.